Welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known. The Institute of the Black World 21st Century, or IBW 21, led by its president, Dr. Ron Daniels, will convene a national town hall meeting on the impact of the critical midterm elections on Black America and the Pan-African world on Thursday, November 10th, at the historic Crampton Auditorium on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. Dr. Daniels and IBW 21 will also engage Howard University students as participants and respondents during the program. Here to discuss is Dr. Ron Daniels. How you doing, Dr. Daniels?
Great to be with you, and we're hoping that we'll have a great outcome for this election. It's very troubling as we go into the election, particularly as we talk about the Black vote and what the Black vote means, the power of the Black vote. And so many of us are very nervous about that because this is the most significant election in probably more than a half century, equally a half century. And there's so much at stake, particularly in terms of the rise of white nationalist MAGA forces in this country who are hell-bent on imposing minority rule in terms of voter suppression, beating back the many gains that we have achieved over the years. And yet some of the reports seem to suggest that maybe Black voter enthusiasm is not as strong as it ought to be. But on the other hand, we don't know whether to believe the polls or not. What we do know is we got people like Barbara Arnwine out there, you know, with voter protection, rolling up and down the South and every place else trying to get that vote out. LaTosha Brown and Cliff with Black Voters Matter, Melanie Campbell, you know, they're out there, and the Divine Nines.
NPA.
yeah, well, and then NPA too. But I'm saying these are folks. Yeah, I know we're doing our best, but I'm saying these are people. You know, they're on the ground. I don't know if y'all got any troops on the ground, but anyway,
they're on the ground. They out with the buses. They're in the South. They're a little bit of everywhere. But this event, Dr. Daniels, this town hall takes place a couple of days after the election, after election day. What's the expectations going into the town hall? What do you, is it like we're going to look back on what we could have done differently, or what is it all about?
No, absolutely. This will be the first major discussion by a awesome, powerful assembly of Black leaders spanning the range of civil rights, human rights, faith organizations to do a post-mortem. What happened? And of course, particularly this election, typically the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, we have a habit of done. This is not our first one. We have done this many times. We typically do it after a presidential election because we always want to know, well, what's the outcome? What will this mean for Black folk in the United States and the global Black community? Well, since the midterms is now so crucial in terms of all of the big lie and the conspiracy theories and all that, we got to figure out after the election, win, lose, or draw, what does this mean? Why did whatever happened happen? If it's positive, you know, in terms of the Democrats keeping the House of Representatives and the Senate, and we say that politically, not so much because we're into the Democrats and the Republicans, but because we know that what they are putting forward and what Biden is putting forward is generally considered to be much more favorable by a long shot than the mega mad white nationalist forces of the Orange Man, aka Agent Orange. So then we'll say, wow, this is what we did, and therefore we need to proceed in a certain way moving forward. If it does not come out that way, what does it really mean in terms of what's happening in America? And to what degree are Black folks perhaps being demoralized, or Black folks perhaps buying into some of the conspiracy theories? I mean, I'm disturbed that the election in Georgia, given the impeccable credentials of Reverend Raphael Warnock, side the other guy, I'm saying like, how is this close? You know what
Well,
I mean?
and that's it too, Dr. Daniels. I'm certainly not a politician, never aspired to, and never would aspire to be a politician. But even having said that, I think I'm more qualified than Herschel Walker. But the fact is, there are folks, lots of folks, as you just mentioned, that race. Theoretically, that race should be 75-25, really. I mean that's the landslide of
But
landslides.
it should be at least comfortably 10 or 15 points. 10, 15, 20 points should be comfortably. Obviously, he enjoys the support of the MAGA mod folks. But also you would think there would be these so-called suburban swing voters that are out there. But I'm also nervous that maybe not enough Black people are turning out and pushing as hard as they can. So this town hall meeting will have some of the brightest and best. Mark Morial, Mr. State of Black America with the Urban League, is going to do a kind of framing remarks to lead us off. And then, we have Dr. Julianne Malveaux and helping to do the moderating. And of course, the person that I think has really, really, really been hitting this very hard and very correctly, Roland Martin. We'll have the NAACP represented by Hillary Shelton, the National Rainbow Coalition by Sheridan Todd Yeri, and then some of the people I've already mentioned: Melanie Campbell, the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, Pastor Michael McBride, who is with Black Church PAC, but also is doing a lot on the messaging around this violence question. I wish people had listened to him, because he knows how to talk about this issue of violence in our community. And then, of course, we have Tamika Mallory, and we know the work that she's done over the years. She'll be with us. Janice Mathis, the National Council of Negro Women, traditional civil rights organization, the legendary Dr. Greg Carr, who will be joining us as well. And then we have Mel Foote, who is our expert on Africa policy, and Dr. E. Faye Williams, the National Congress of Black Women. So right. This is, and I forgot Maurice Mitchell. I don't want to leave him out. He's in Harvard.
Well, when you start naming names, you got to name them all.
Howard University alum. But he's also there because he's with the Working Families Party. And so the whole idea of, do we need a third party, an independent party, or how this all plays out will be very much in place. So it'll be live. And of course, we want people in the greater DC area to come, but we're also going to stream it. Roland Martin will be streaming it. WPFW radio will be carrying it, broadcasting it live.
And that's 7 p.m. Eastern.
That's right. And new U.S. News and World Report is plugging in. We already know that Reuters and Associated Press are going to be there. The whole world is going to be watching, and we know that NNPA will be on the scene. So you roll.
And so, Dr. Daniels, with that though, you mentioned win, lose, or draw. Let's talk. Let's break down the categories here, and let's start with the I guess positive first. So back in 2020. Black folks, particularly Black women, as we know, they showed up, and as they say, they showed out.
Showed out, as they say.
and the Democrats got the House, the Senate, pretty much the Senate, and of course the White House. And yet, you are concerned, and many are concerned, that they're either not going to show up, or some polls. Again, we're not trusting all the polls, but some indications that there are more African-American, particularly African-American men, who are casting their vote on the Republican side than they did in 2020 and they did previously.
Yeah, and also there's some slippage in terms of the Latino vote. What people don't understand is the strategy for the retrograde, right-wing, racist Republicans has nothing to do with getting the majority of the Black vote. They only need a small percentage to sign off on their agenda, and therefore they will be in power. So the problem is this: the Democrats and Biden have done a tremendous amount. You just ticked off some of their accomplishments. We have a vice president, the first in the history of this country. He kept his word, a Black person in the Supreme Court. In the briefing room, you have Pierre, our sister, I always get her last name. I know Pierre sticks out in my mind. She's doing her thing. But it's also not about the faces. It's about policy. And in terms of policy, the Inflation Reduction Act that just got passed, HBCUs will benefit. Those who have Pell Grants, disproportionately Black vote, will benefit. There are pieces in the legislative agenda that deal with repairing communities that were gutted by gentrification. But here's the problem. They don't talk about it. They're not.
And therein lies the problem, right?
So, but I want to make it very clear. It's not a lesser evil thing. It's not that they haven't been doing. It is this fear that somehow if you say it, it will alienate white voters and white working class voters, when in reality, many of them have gone over to the MAGA side and they are not coming back. And so my concern has been, just talk about it. Just find ways to let folk know. And of course, that's what we're doing. Of course, you know, Roland is doing it. The folks are all listed out there. They're being the surrogates. They're out there beating the drums. It's just that, and I'll tell you the other thing I just had to, we're already going to talk about, is the stupidity of investing in these more MAGA candidates, these more Trumpy candidates, because they would be defeated easier, which in principle is a problem. Because, I mean, if I'm against the insurrection that took place on January 6th, I'm not going to support anybody for that. I can beat you straight up on the basis of principle. But the worst thing about it is that's dollars that could have went to the NMPA for advertising, the black radio, and for troops on the ground. So it's almost an insult that we have consultants that would be that stupid to do that kind of thing. And so that creates a level of outrage. But despite that outrage, we know that we just, and I think what's happening, for example, I heard somebody this morning say, well, it's easy to vote. I mean, there's no problem with voting. Look what's happening in Georgia. Well, because why? Because you know what we said. We don't care if you put the voting booth in the desert. We have rallying our people. We're saying we have to have that spirit. We're coming anyway. And even now we're saying, hey, it ain't too late. Get up, get out, and roll out. You know, do what is necessary. It's that fighting spirit. But that doesn't mean that we don't have barriers. The barriers are put there. But when they put those barriers there, that's to say to us, if the white folks are saying they don't want us to vote, then that's the first sign we need to look up and say, well, whoa, what does that mean?
Well, and Dr. Daniels, if the outcome, when you get to the town hall on Thursday and the outcome reflects that it's not favorable to African Americans, who's going to get the blame for that? African Americans, right?
Well, yeah, there'll be some head scratching because when they talk about the base, I often say, well, you got a message to the base. And quite frankly, what we're seeing on the other side is being very laser focused on that reality. They are, when they know who their base is, it ain't a pretty base. It is all kind of conspiracy theorists, the big lie believers and perpetrators, and this white nationalist thing, which is very, very dangerous. They're firing them up. And by the way, nothing we can say is going to change many of them. You have to beat them straight up. There's some people in the margins that you can probably persuade. The goal should have always been, and still is today, I want to get Pookie and Ray Ray up and move it. You know what I mean? That's what Harold Washington did in Chicago. He had everybody ready to roll, and that's what we'll need to do. So they may blame, but it doesn't matter. We still have to assess what is in our best interest. How do we organize ourselves politically better? How do we use economic sanctions? If these people are going to come with a right-wing agenda, we got to take a page out of the past in terms of what King did in Birmingham and other places. We can take the billions of dollars in our hands economically and say we will withhold those dollars. We are not going to allow the clock to be turned back. So that's where the strategy comes in. And how do we then advance an agenda in spite of the fact that we got these right-wing Republicans, these white nationalists who are controlling? My sense is, my optimism is that we're going to bring the Senate. The Senate is going to be, I think we'll pull the Senate out.
Right.
The House is much harder because these people have got these, super red districts where it's very difficult. The only way to get those super red districts is for them to actually appeal to voters who would turn out. So I think you could have a split screen, and that split screen is one in which that's a little bit better in terms of traction. But on the other hand, it just means that you can't get much more done than judges, and that's very significant. People are now learning how important judges are. That's the other thing I got to say. We need civic education. We need to be able to tell our people, teach our people much more about what this political process means, right down to judges, school board, representatives, precinct leaders, and that. And again, I got to take my hat off to Roland Martin. He's been pounding that and teaching that. We need to take a page from that book, which Reverend Jesse Jackson did for many, many years, as did Walter Fauntleroy and others. We got to get back to that, teaching our people right at the grassroots level, but not just at election time. We just can't do this at election time. We need to, this has got to be in our fiber, because we as Black people are the conscience of the country. When we are woke and moving, it shakes up everything and moves it in a positive direction. So that's what I think the town hall meeting will be about. We hope people will turn out in record numbers. As I was saying, I don't know much about this rapping stuff, but I know that Snoop Dogg say, "Don't meet me there, beat me there." So I want to see people in record numbers coming out.
President Obama was in Arizona yesterday, and he said that democracy may not survive if Arizona Republicans win. And we also know that he was also alluding to, control of the Senate and to an extent control of the House. But when you talk to Black folks, especially young ones, when you talk about democracy not surviving, I don't know that that's on top of their list, though.
It's not on the top of their list, but it should be. And what I'm saying is there are groups who in their political culture, because they know the importance of the process. Let me just say this. In a situation like the United States of America, even in this election where you're talking about record numbers of people who are voting, when you add it all up, there will still be millions of people, not just Black people, millions of people who will not have a vote. Why? It's very difficult. It's very complicated. They really don't encourage you to vote. So if you understand that, those who do vote and organize exercise power disproportionate to their numbers. So therefore, you're looking at certain groups that are coming into this country, and I'm not saying this negatively, who are really a minority of voters, but they become the swing vote. In a certain district, there's a number of people who have organized themselves. I see it in New York, I see it around the country, and they say, we understand this political process. And we go to politics and we say, we have a certain number of votes. And because they can deliver those votes, then all of a sudden the politicians have to respond. Well, we can do that all the time. My formula is we should have 90% of all Black people in this country registered to vote. And on election day, we should turn out 90% of them. If we did that, Lord have mercy. I mean, it would create an earthquake until maybe somebody would wake up and say, whoa, maybe everybody ought to. But right now, most people do not, a significant number of people do not vote, which means that those who do vote are the ones who exercise political power. And that's a lesson we have to learn after this election. We got to begin. It's 50 years since the Gary National Black Political Convention. One of the lessons of that convention was local agenda conferences, meeting with people, finding out what their agendas are. Even if you know what it is already, the participation becomes important. We need civic engagement, more and more and more of that, and we gotta devote ourselves to that. And we can't. And we gotta roll up our sleeves and not be afraid to go into our communities and touch people in order to get that done.
So, Dr. Jan, earlier you talked about Herschel Walker. You didn't mention his name. I mentioned his name, but ostensibly you was talking about Herschel Walker. When you look at the last, really since Obama was in office, and certainly after he left office, you look at America and the pulse of America, and the masks have come off, the sheets has come off. People came out the mountains and and everywhere else. Put yourself, if you can, maybe you can't, because many of us can't. Put yourselves in the shoes of Black folks like a Herschel Walker, like a Clarence Thomas, like a Candace Owens. How does that happen when it's been as blatant as ever before? I mean, since Jim Crow, that right. What the one side really is seeking, right? Right now, they're talking in the Supreme Court about affirmative action as it pertains to college admissions. Now, Justice Thomas, he even went almost as far as interracial marriage until he realized, oh, okay, me and her are not the same color. But how does a Black person justify going along with that?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. Number one, there's some people who simply get prominence if they're willing to carry the monster's water. I mean, just straight up. I mean, and so what we had to learn, and I remember when Clarence Thomas was being confirmed, it was kind of blind. It was the notion that all skin folk are kinfolk, right? But we know that's not. We now know. I knew it then, but I was warning. But I know prominent Black leaders who say, "Oh, that's a brother. He'll be fine when he." We can't do that because it's not just the content of our color. Yes, we're pro-Black, but Black means something more than skin color. It means a ethic. It means a way of looking at the world in terms of righteousness and justice and fighting for ourselves and expanding that. That's who we are. That's our tradition. But there always have been some. Had it not been, Denmark Vesey's slave rebellion would have worked. Every one of the slave rebellions, there was somebody who just internalized that hatred, internalized and identified with the master, as Malcolm said, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" Identify with the master more than the master. So that's not the majority, but you just need a few people. So now what they've done is they take a right-wing racist agenda and you put a Black face on it. Then all of a sudden they can hide. They can hide and throw a rock and hide behind Herschel Walker, who can't hardly put two sentences together.
2 words.
And here's the point. Here's where the ethical bankruptcy comes. They said, one lady said, and you probably heard the quote, "I don't care if he paid for and I'm just going to create this, a abortion for an orangutan.
Mm-hmm.
We want that Senate seat because
I saw that. Yes,
power." And I'm saying we will never do that. We will never, ever, as Black people, put power above principle. We believe in principle. And that's what we need to fire up our people about. That's why Selma.
Well, isn't it time? Doesn't a time comes though, Dr. Daniels, where you got to fight fire with fire?
Well, you do fight fire with fire, but you don't fight. But the fighting fire with fire means that we organize harder. But we don't. But we fight clean. I'm not ever in favor of using.
They listen. The other side ain't that. You know, you can argue if you are a Democrat, you can argue that the other side has not fought fair forever.
Well, I don't really care about that because I think we have the better case. I really believe.
Yeah, but you know that and what you call it, subway token gets you on the train.
Yeah, but here's my point. When I say fight, you got to fight. But what I'm seeing right now is almost like the Democrats is on Sominex. I mean, they're not really fighting. They're not taking their case to the people. You're sitting up there talking in New York. You got this guy talking about crime and so forth and so on. Well, what happened? The Republicans gutted the mental health system. Most of the people who are attacking people on subways, many of them have mental issues. They gutted public housing. Mm-hmm. So so we have to put that on the Republicans. You did that. And
that's a problem because the Democrats seem like they are not capable of doing that, right?
Well, because they get hit upside the head and it's like they dazed. When I'm saying you have to fight back. You understand what I'm saying? Right. How do you, let me say something else very clearly. How is it that Biden could be down on the economy? They don't trust him on the economy. Well, I mean,
the report came out today, looking good.
Yeah, but you know what happened is do people forget what was happening right after COVID? There was no economy. You didn't have a check. The American Rescue Plan put billions of dollars in your hands. It's rescued small businesses, including minority businesses. But I got to say that. I have to come out. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not intimidated. And by the way, on inflation, I'm telling you the truth. There ain't a whole lot I can do about the inflation, but I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to work for you. And the other side is blocking at every instant. They even want to charge. They don't even want to reduce insulin for 35. You got to fight. But when I hear them, well, we don't know. And you can't just be on one issue, by the way. I believe in reproductive rights. Believe me. But you just can't have one note in the tune.
Well, especially something. So look, let's go there, Dr. Daniels. Especially something like that, because while a lot of people were upset with that Roe v. Wade decision back in June, you talk to folks who Black folks of faith, right? No matter what faith, many of them was like, you know what, the Supreme Court, I'm not mad at them.
Yeah, but here's the thing about us that we have done over the years. The Black voters have largely been able to say, well, and because I would suspect the same thing is with marriage equality. We just certain hesitant, but we've never ever taken one or two issues like that and made that the single issue. You see what I'm saying? So people can say, all right, I don't know if I like that, but the minimum wage is out there. I like what Biden did in terms of a woman vice president. I like what's happening in terms of the Supreme Court. I like what happens in terms of the policies that's going to increase my wages and provide health care and all those kind of things. But you got to message that. That's my critique of the Democratic Party, is that you have the goods. You have something to run on, and you acting like somebody knocked you upside and you staggered around like a punch-drunk fighter. So what I have to articulate the message when it would be better coming from the top. But we're doing the best we can, but there is a record. It's not a situation where, oh, the Dems haven't done anything. They ain't this and all. Tweedledee. I was with Roland last night. He was pointing out somebody was talking about business. He said, well, what do you think you checked out? He had people say A or B. Which party do you think is more likely to do minority loans? And then he kept going down the list. When you check it off like that, it's not even close. But somebody has to be able to articulate that. And my frustration is they're paying these consultants to do dumb stuff. Because you also just can't talk about probable voters.
They're avoiding, and I say they, I'm talking about the Democrats in the White House are avoiding the Roland Martins. They're avoiding the NMPAs. The places where they can really get their messaging to where they need it to go, and that's Black and minority communities.
And it's not, some of this is not hard. I mean, President Biden, they're going to send, they are going to send a rescue package to Mississippi. The Biden administration is going to do that. And they sent the person who was the brother, and I think this is a good brother, they sent him down to Jackson, Mississippi in order to deliver the word, right? But you didn't hear anything, you didn't hear it really talked about a great deal. But if it had been Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, he wouldn't have just sent a message in there. He would have went right down in there. Given what happened, Biden, if he had gone to Jackson, Mississippi and stood next to Chokwe, Anwar, Lumumba, even though it's a red state, he ain't talking about the red, that would have sent a message, a signal to all of us. Damn, President of the United States is standing right there. It's just that kind of ineptitude that I'm talking about. And Joe Biden is a decent man. He's a good man. In fact, he should win the election decent points against Agent Orange and these conspiracy theorists and nasty, ugly people perpetuating violence and all that. I don't understand what's in the mind. What's also dangerous, I don't understand what's in the minds of marginal independents who would still say, I still would vote back. On the decency question, is a scene would say, we need to, and that's why I got to say, Liz Cheney, I disagree with her politics, but she got guts. She's standing up saying, no, this is a danger to democracy. Here are people stealing the election who are saying, Looney Tune Ron Johnson is saying in Wisconsin, I don't know. He's saying, I don't know if I'm going to, he's setting himself up to say the election is stolen. Liz Cheney is saying no. And so I have to respect that kind of guts, that kind of courage, even though I disagree with her politics and the positions that she takes. So it's a lot going on. That's why we have to have this town hall meeting. That's why the Institute of the Black World 21st Century is proud to do it. That's why we're honored to have Roland Martin, who's really beyond the case, being one of the moderators. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, is our leading Black political economist, also on the National African American Reparations Commission, and this power-packed panel. That Mark Morrell, I have such great respect for him. Over and over again, they come every year with the State of Black America report with the indicators showing what's happening. That's why we have him there to sort of frame this whole thing is very important. And then every one of the major civil rights organizations who were available, and that was one organization or two that had conflicts and so forth, but we have a broad group of people who represent the civil rights, human rights, faith community, and some young people too who are on this panel who are going to analyze it and talk about the way forward. And it won't be the only meeting we have. This is just one pivot point. And let me just say, I'm so proud also that students at Howard University will be participating. The vice president of the Student Government Association is going to be speaking. Erica Clark is going to be speaking. The president had another commitment. We're going to have students on the stage as respondents so they can engage in the process because they need to be involved in this kind of process. So I'm really happy about it. And I'm really pleased that NMPA has given us the voice and a platform to articulate these issues, to debate them, and to share our perspectives, because that's what the Black press has done. That's what
95 years
had in mind all those many years ago when the Black press came to be. And I support the Black press. And we certainly appreciate the support that the Black press is providing for Black America, because that is fundamental in terms of our institutions that are out here fighting for the future of our people.
Absolutely. And Dr. Ron Daniels, the president of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century Town Hall, National Town Hall. He read off the names earlier that are going to be there and participate.
And by the way, you can go to the website ibw21.org, ibw21.org, and you can see everything. It's going to be streamed on all our platforms, Twitter, Instagram, all these platforms will have it, and a lot of other people are plugging in. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, Thursday at Howard University, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Go to the website, find out. You can find out everywhere that is being streamed and participate. Lastly, is there openings for folks to come to Howard University to see this live?
Oh, no, absolutely. That's what we're saying. And when you go to the site, even the address, and you'll find the address and everything, because we really want people in Washington, D.C. to come turn out, physically. And we're hoping that this is a historic place. Howard University is the home of Kamala Harris, who is the vice president. Many other people have come through there. Raj J. Baraka, mayor of New Jersey, I'm sorry. And of course, one of the alums who has graduated there is going to be on the panel, Maurice Mitchell, who's really with the Working Families Party, a growing formation. So we wanted to be in the nation's capital, and we wanted to be at Howard University, and that's where we are. So we want people to turn out in large numbers to meet us there, to be a part of history, and really begin to talk about how we move forward. And I really think what's going to begin to happen, and Roland is doing this, I think we're going to be starting to have town hall meetings all over the country. I think the Congressional Black Caucus, all these organizations, I think we're going to start rolling out here more, sort of gathering our people, educating our people, and getting young people involved and touching them where they are and whatever. I don't blame our people for not voting. I encourage them to, but I'm not condemning them. I understand the trauma. I understand the way in which the system does not encourage people and all that. All I can do is encourage. And I think Roland had a shirt on last night. Our ancestors would want us to do this. That's what fires me up. I'm fighting because I understand my history, my ancestors that was just come before me. Some people don't have that same spirit, and some people don't understand how the system works and how it means. So again, that means I got to work harder. That means I got to do more in order to translate this and make sure our people are ready to roll. So I'm optimistic. Either way, we're resilient. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't turning back.
Thanks again, Dr. Ron Daniels, president of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century. Again, the town hall is this coming Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern at Howard University. Go to the website and check it out. And if you're in D.C., in the D.C. area, stop in to Howard University. Thanks so much for joining the Black Press of America's flagship morning show, Let It Be Known. Everybody have a great day.